Tabletops will start after the following messages.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. Today, we are going to be helping folks who might be feeling a little hesitant to start building their first session. And we are going to build a session from start to finish to give a little bit of an example of how that's done. So here are the parameters, everyone. The party is going to be 4 level 3s in a D&D 5e campaign. This is the first full campaign that the players are part of, and they are still new to the system. So let's build something for them. But before we get into it, who's the architect of this session today? Who's here with me?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What the hell do you mean? I'm not the architect. Hi, I'm Franco. I'm the architect.
Cool.
Neo, we've been expecting you. No,
that's a different architect.
Yes, it is. I'm Shade, and again, showing my age.
I'm Daniel. I will also be the architect.
Great. So we have 3 architects and 1 host in a room. This is a start of a bad joke.
And there's no engineer.
There's no engineer or city planner. Oh shit!
We're gonna build the most beautiful building that's gonna fall apart in 2 days.
Amazing.
All actions, no thought.
Isn't that the thing we love about these games? Is they're ethereal. They disappear after you played them once.
That's true.
You forget everything.
Yeah, that's because the buildings fall down. Okay, so let's start out. We have the 4-person party. We have a new GM. These folks are level 3. Let's say that we just started them at level 3. They're still new to the campaign. They just wanted to start at like where they could start choosing their subclasses and stuff. So let's start at the beginning. What story do we think we want to tell in this session? Like a genre, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's 5th edition. If we're not going to be using something, by the books, and we're going to kind of dive headlong already into subclasses with little experience, I would say this is a homebrew campaign, and it's probably high fantasy.
Let's say high fantasy. It's an easy place to start. Lots of examples and media to pull from. What do you think, Daniel?
I think this is going to be a great story to sort of give them a questing option.
Okay.
Start them somewhere and have them look for something with a immediate danger to sort of like start guiding that tentpole of like what they're going to have to overcome to get what they need.
So you kind of want to start them at a hub and then give them like a fetch quest kind of thing, like a thing that will take them into a place of danger and then bring them back out.
Exactly. Basic hero's journey for starting out.
Yeah, use that hero circle, everyone. What about you, Franco?
I think that sort of structure really lends itself best to Dungeons and Dragons, like as a whole. Just saying like, here's a safe place. It's super boring. And you're just getting your stuff here, and then you're just going somewhere else. Like, unless you're running like a city campaign, which I think in this example, it's probably better we just do a sort of, here's a normal place and the evil is encroaching, and like go get this artifact or something from this crypt or whatever.
Right.
That's a really sort of easy way to get people into the game.
Cool. Yeah. So we have them starting at a central hub. Let's say a town. Let's say medium-sized town.
Little quiet
not a
village.
City. Yeah. And let's say that it is an adventurer's outpost is there. Or do we want to make them part of the guard? Do we want them to just be normal folks?
No,
ACAB. All guards are bastards. ACAB.
I think it's again, we're looking at this as a relatively new GM, so they're probably going to go with the classic, hey, I want them to meet. I want to have them, give them a chance to kind of explore their characters and meet one another. But I would advise against that and instead go ahead and give them a concrete, you are already a band of adventurers.
Yeah, I think that, like, anytime I've played, that has always worked the best, because otherwise you're kind of meandering. I think one of my more effective intros has been I think this was like sort of with a mix of players, like slightly more experienced and then like completely, fairly inexperienced. And I just had them like each have like kind of a little moment, like where you had like a little bit of an RP moment. Like one of the characters was like going around town and like hanging out with her grandma and like escorting her to this thing or whatever. And these other two characters like happened to be taking like a language class to learn Celestial. And because they were like, oh, we want to start with Celestial. And it's like, I wonder how you could learn that. And it's like, okay, you take a year of Celestial class and that's how you guys know each other.
At the community college.
Yeah, at the local community college. But the main thing was that they were all going to meet up with the big shot and get a quest from him or something at noon or whatever it was. But I was just like, here, let's introduce your characters a little bit. And then now let's bring them. And that way, like everyone gets a little bit of a moment, which would be maybe a good way to introduce, characters overall.
Yeah, I think a good way to start a party who don't have a lot of experience is to go through and give everyone their spotlight moment.
Yeah.
Who are you? What are you doing in this town? Give them a moment to just sort of like talk narratively about their character, and then pair them off. Like we have a party of 4. So have 2 people meet and then run that RP, have the other 2 people meet, run that RP, and then have both pairs also meet in the middle, and then you have the group coming together. And that's like a first hour of your first session, is letting everyone get a chance to slip into the characters and practice RPing with the other members of the party before they get into anything too heavy.
Yeah, because I think that sort of classic, we all meet in a tavern and like whatever, it does really muddy the whole like getting to know your characters thing. And I mean, there's also like the opposite situation where like you maybe don't want to do this with first timers, or maybe you do. I don't know. Hard to say. However, you can do whatever you want. We're not your parents. But like, there's also the idea of just being like, okay, we're just going to like forget all the preamble. Like we're just here. Like we're at that crypt that I mentioned earlier and you're going to go get the thing. And like you've already gotten the thing. Like, let's just start playing. There's like I don't know, there's 2 schools of thought really when it comes to that, I think.
A way that you can kind of marry both of those, I think, is that you can start them at the crypt and then kind of flash back to how they like started this like thing and be like, okay, like you are at the doors of the skeletal crypt and like you kind of push them open and all of you start kind of coughing as grave dust goes into your lungs. Like Lysandra, you flash back to how only a day ago you met Johnson over here at, a gambler's den, and like flash back into that moment. And like, so that way you can let them kind of have, like Daniel said, a chance to slip into the characters, but then immediately don't go through the logistics of how are we getting this quest.
Well, that also brings up a valid second option. Maybe we've just discussed it, but in some movies when you're first seeing the introduction as an action sequence, everyone's already involved in something.
In media res.
In media res. Just start the campaign with, all right, you guys are running down the middle of the city streets. The guards are hot on your heels. You have this like stolen bag of goods that you needed to get. How are all of your characters reacting to this immediate danger, and give them a chance to practice their role playing, but also now you're in an actual action thing, so everyone's focused, everyone's invested, everyone's bought in.
It really depends, I think, on like what you think the players might want to do. And that example also brings to mind, Nick, that really fun thing. I forget what episode you said this in. So you guys better listen to all of them so you can find out too. But like there was that, well, I guess this is kind of taking it away because I'm just going to tell it now. But like your character got like thrown out of a window and then they were like, you have to come up with 5,000 gold by tomorrow or you're dead.
I think that was Daniel's character, right?
No, that was so I was kind of using a moment that kind of happened to Daniel's character in one of my campaigns, but also saying like, you can just do that. Like the first time you see your character say like our camera pans in on the window of a local tavern as you are thrown through the glass. You are then surrounded by these people who are like, get us our effing money.
Yeah.
It's true.
So for this one, we know that it's level 3, 5e, that it's centered in a town. What direction do you think we want to start off with as far as getting them? Do we want to go with we're starting them in media res? Do we want to go with we're starting them at the dungeon and they're going to go back to the town? Or do we want to start in that town?
I think the flashback idea, Nick, that you came up with is really fun, but I think it might be confusing for first timers.
Yeah.
Remember when The Witcher season 1 came out and no one understood the timeline? I was very upset at everyone.
Yeah,
but
I
when I
still don't
figured-
understand the timeline.
Sorry.
But when I figured it out,
really
it
upset.
made a lot of sense.
I think that since they are level 3s, we can assume that they've already done a few adventures as characters,
Sure.
like not as players, but as characters. So we can start them all in media res. I think is the best place to start them, because in that case, they're already somewhat seasoned adventurers if they're level 3. They are in the middle of a job, let's say, and we're throwing them together and saying like, you guys all this is the 3rd job you've all been on. The Adventurers Guild keeps pairing you up for some reason, even though you have these like none of you are very similar in, backgrounds, but this is your 3rd job. Let's start you in a weird spot.
Yeah.
I forgot I was gonna come in hot and just say, fuck that, they're level 1.
I was thinking about that too. I kind of did. I was like, this is an experienced DM.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we can keep doing it for this, but I'm just saying it would also be funny if you just told them it was level 3 and then you're like, actually, I just downgraded all of your character sheets. You're level 1, and it's the same. It's a CR3 dungeon anyway.
Classic.
Originally, what you said, Franco, was screw it. They're level 1s, and they should have 5 backup characters.
Yeah, exactly. And that way they get a lot of experience making characters.
Yeah.
There you go.
I do want to say this in opposition to Franco's kill him.
Hell yeah.
If you're
Don't
doing
kill them, let them fail on their own.
Let them kill themselves.
tomato.
Open roll.
If you're gonna start in the in media res, I would say as the DM, make a special note that this is not designed to challenge the character's skill. This is designed to just give the characters an action backdrop. So maybe don't call for too many rolls during this scene. Let the character, if the character says they want to flip over a barrel to get away from a guard, this is a scene where they maybe have some plot armor, and you can just let that ride.
Yeah.
Well, you
Without,
should just be able to do that, right?
You should be able to, but a lot of sometimes the DM's okay, you try to do something, roll a dex save.
This barrel's full of apples that weighs 500 pounds.
You have to make an
There has to be a pool between letting the players just do fun stuff to get into the swing of it, and then wait until what scenes actually have weight to have consequences stack up.
Yep. Yeah, I was listening to or watching the Dimension 20 first season, which I've never done. I haven't done the Fantasy High stuff for Dimension 20. And episode 2 is their first fight, and everyone it was great comedy, but everyone was jumping up on this table and absolutely failing an athletics check that he decided needed to be there to jump up on a table, where I just thought, it's just extra movement. It's just extra movement. We don't need to, move that along. But it was great for the comedy of that comedy podcast or television show. But not great for your first session.
Speaking to that, let's talk a little bit about the theme and vibe that we're trying to go for. It sounds like we kind of want to start in media res. So let's say that it's a band of small time crooks, they're thieves, kind of
bandits,
thing. They're small time thieves. They're trying to raise some money for some reason that makes sense in their backstories.
For one of their grandmother's surgeries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I merely stole the loaf of bread to survive.
For one of their grandmother's gambling debts.
There you go.
That's really fun.
That is fun.
Old Granny 2 dice.
Yeah,
Granny Snake
Eyes.
Eyes.
Yeah,
Okay.
We're building this session. We already have a fan favorite NPC.
All right. So they are trying to escape because Granny Snake Eyes sent them to go secure her stash before her debtors came and got it. And so you're in the middle of being on the run from these debtors.
She stashed it in the haunted crypt where Grandpa Snake Eyes is buried.
Or maybe let's say how do we get them to a kind of more combat encounter? Do we want
this is a race. The debtors know where the stash is. The party knows where the stash is. So now you're playing who gets there first, and when they do get there, are they trying to take back the stash, or are they trying to defend it and get away
That's
as the
fun.
debtors arrive?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
maybe
perfect.
the first thing is that you start them with like Granny Snake Eyes being like, and that's the deal. The door bursts open and all the guards come in and she's like, peace, haters, like see you in the crypt, and like jumps down an escape hatch and everyone has to escape from them. And then it's like you said, a race to the stash point to try to collect everything.
And just to be clear, Granny Snake Eyes is definitely not secretly a hag. Just absolutely not.
No, that would be bad.
No, classically not.
Yeah.
all right,
All
so
the adventurers are 12.
it's like the little like gang of like orphan thieves.
They're all kinder.
Yeah. All right. So do we want to set any like limitations or boundaries on the session for our players or for our GM building purposes?
I think we kind of put this note in case, like, because like a good thing to start at the top is just like telling the players like, this is what kind of classes and species and like backgrounds I am thinking of for this campaign, and then like any sort of red, yellow, and green lights. And I mean, like, I don't know. If we,
Definitely great stuff for a session 0 to hit on.
I think within the limitations of and boundaries of this session that we're building, let's say that we have 2 locations. We have in the town and we have the crypt. So just to like focus our efforts in on those 2 places. And then we also just need to set some sort of boundary for our players so that they don't try to escape out into like a different place.
So anytime you tell a new party, oh, we're going to play in this city and this is where the adventure is, you can have someone goes, I get a horse and ride south.
Yeah.
So stop that.
And I think that you can make that simple by saying that there are terrible, terrible monsters in the forest.
Yeah.
And like maybe that's something Granny tells them, you've got to go to the crypt, you've got to recover the money, but don't stray off the road because there are hydras in there. And if you have a player that calls the bluff, there's a hydra there and they can escape it easily, but like make it a very clear, like, oh God, I am going to die. And that's a little railroady.
yeah, you got to
but
telegraph all the hits. I would just say, yeah, you got to telegraph all the hits. Like if you're going to go.
If you're going to do a KO, you have to be like, I'm about to do a KO.
It's like he's charging up his breath weapon and this will kill you.
Yeah, one of the most terrifying but useful border walls that I have found in like video games has been like if there's a water level and you can swim off, and if you go like a minute off land, a shark just out of nowhere. I think that is your good. Okay, you can leave the city town, but
there are were sharks out there.
there's a were shark out there, and if you go too far, you're going to get attacked and killed immediately.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to lean into the Granny Snake Eyes being a hag,
No,
she
she's
could've-
definitely not. She's definitely not a hag.
But also, like, for whatever reason, she gave all these kids tattoos. I don't know. That,
Right.
like, they start to glow if they start to do something that she doesn't want them to do.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
There's, like, a lot of different ways to, like, keep them in the city or they keep them
Yeah.
at the crypt kind of
I
thing.
love the idea of Granny Snake Eyes putting explosive runes on the
it's like what's that movie?
Battle Royale.
where they have the
Oh my
cops where it
gosh.
explodes.
Forgot all about that.
Awesome. So now we have sort of like the set dressing. We have the basic theme.
Wait, I want to say
Yeah.
another thing about about keeping, like, if you have one of the players who says like, great, I get a horse and I ride south away from the rest of the party, just tell them like, okay, great, roll up another character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because everyone else wants to play this game.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Then we have that conversation of if your character is like, this is what my character would do, and it's not in the theme of the game, then you need a character that would do something different.
Yeah. I would, like, in this situation, I would have them, as they build their characters, say, like, why do you owe a debt to Granny Snake Eyes? Like, what is it? Is it just a familial debt? Is it like you owe her because she took you off the street and has raised you to be the little thief that you are? Or, does she actually have something of yours that you want back in the stash? And that's why you're going to try to get there as well. Like that is, I guess, another really good boundary and limitation to start kind of incentivizing them to go along with your story.
I really want this to just be a party of a kobold, a goblin, a kinder, and like a gnome. Just a bunch of small
Little
ones.
shorties.
Yeah, little shorties.
Granny Snake Eyes short rounds.
Or I guess a halfling. That's shorter than a gnome.
And right after these messages, we'll start talking about how all these shorties get into some trouble. Hey there, everyone. This is Nick from Tabletop, and I have a awesome thing to share with you. Get ready to embark on an epic journey with a new TTRPG, Mythcraft. Mythcraft is the ultimate TTRPG system and universe brought to you by all of the folks at the Homebrew Network in partnership with Quasi Real Publishing. It has one of the most robust character creation systems I've seen on the market, and you as the player will have the power to design all the types of characters you've ever wanted to play in your dream campaign, and it has a huge narratively rich universe built into it. Choose from up to 14 lineages, 11 classes, countless occupation and profession options, and a ton of talents makes this game super customizable for whatever you're trying to do. It has endless intriguing and unique combinations to create a perfect hero, and the best part, you'll get new options for your character with a new talent point every level. So no more having to wait for that feat or to try to build something homebrew. This allows you to customize every single class on the fly. We'll need your support to make this happen. Sign up for the pre-launch update at mythcraftrpg.com and get ready to embark on a really amazing adventure. Mythcraft RPG opens on Kickstarter on March 15th, and you won't want to miss out on this thrilling journey, so you can do this. Go to mythcraftrpg.com and check out our feed, because we are going to be interviewing the creators of Mythcraft, and it's going to be super great, so keep an ear open for that as well. All right, everyone, welcome back to Tabletop. We are building a session from scratch. We have set all of the basic ideas and themes out in the first half. Now we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of actually building the encounters and building the session. We said at the beginning that we kind of wanted to start them in media res. So does anyone have like sort of a way that they want to start this out? Let's say the first encounter, if it is like a chase sequence or something like that, it can be a skill challenge or something like that, just to get them a little bit comfortable with rolling dice. But like you said, Daniel, don't make them do anything crazy.
I would say a chase roll is, or a chase sequence is pretty good. There are a lot of rules for that in any system that you might be playing with. But yeah, to start them with a chase that's not, maybe not failable, but takes longer or gives them less benefits the more that they fail.
I think this can be a really tricky needle to thread, though. Like having like, it's like, okay, this is functioning to introduce us to the characters and introduce us to like a little bit of the gameplay, but like you have to be prepared to do the thing. Like if you're making them roll a die, then you have to be prepared for the failure as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like what does that failure look like when you're in this chase sequence? Like maybe it just means you like take some damage as you're like running off or whatever. And you're level 3, so you can take a D4 dagger or something.
Or maybe you're all wearing like masks because you're coming out of, like, you're trying to hide your identities, and one of the guards or the bandits or whatever rips off your mask, and now they know your face. So then like that's a failure that later in the game they're gonna have to deal with that.
something like that.
I like to like you take a D4 of damage, or you lose something to get away. Those are good failures.
That mechanic is really fun. I think that also is in Monster of the Week, where there's like a specific move where it's like if you roll a partial success, you have to leave something behind.
Yeah.
If like you either leave something behind or you stay where you are, basically, like when you're running away.
It's one of the act under pressure, try and
I think it's a
escape
mundane.
ones.
It's a mundane.
It's like I know the way out kind of thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's like roll like on a full success you're out, on a failure you're fucked.
Yeah.
And on a partial success you can get out only if you leave something behind.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that the sort of prologue or the lights up moment is, I think that we have, the camera or whatever centered on an empty room, and then all of these characters are like flying through different entrances into this room, and Granny Snake Eyes is like, okay, we don't have a whole lot of time. This is the deal.
Yeah,
that's
and
fun.
You get like a real quick intro, and then like the glass shatters and people are starting to crawl through, and she pulls up an escape hatch into the sewers, and then there you are. That's like your beginning of the chase, like you were saying.
I love that she's here with us.
And
for a second at least.
Yeah, and she like you could even have like depending on what kind of tone you're going for, it's like they're in like a church or something. She pulls up this like secret hatch to the sewer, says like, get in there. And then everyone's like, what about you? And she like pulls out a grappling hook and just it's like gone.
I like that better because then at that point we're right in the dungeon.
Yeah.
At that point, you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, the sewers lead to the crypt or whatever, and the crypt is where the stash is, and then you're there.
It also makes sense narratively because that manhole cover is where the chase ends. So obviously Granny Snake Eyes, the NPC guide, leaves the party to take the chase in a different direction.
Okay, so our first encounter, I guess, is right at the top. We have this prologue. We do the info dump. We have them able to like ask questions and kind of talk to each other a little bit. The windows shatter. People are coming in, starting the chase sequence. She grapples away.
This priceless stained glass window is destroyed.
And then how do we want to build that chase sequence so that it's like fun, entertaining, but also gives them a little bit of like how you play the game?
Well, you want to plan a couple of complications for the chase. Like, okay, you're running, so you're making your con saves to see like how you're doing, or your dex save or your stealth checks if you get away from them. But you also want to put in like I think from the theme of what we've been making, like we're doing an action comedy.
Yeah,
Like,
let's do it.
This is what we're doing. So I think you obviously need the fruit vendor wheeling out there. Well, before we get to the sewer, we're in the sewer now. That's part of the chase. So they roll something out, which requires dex saves to dodge.
Yeah,
or they take hits.
Two people coming through with like a pane of glass.
Like
hearing a pane of glass.
Definitely some poor merchant walking into the chase.
Yeah.
Baby carriage.
For any chase that's actually in the sewers, maybe there's like a monster that pops out of the water at some points, but it's not really going to chase after them. It's content to just kind of snap at them.
You have a dire rat eating another dire rat, and it snaps, so it's not a combat encounter.
You have a
It's
dire
oops,
rat.
wrong way.
No,
You have a dire rat
eating each
eating
other.
a giant pizza.
I mean, a sewer version of a dire rat is a diarrhea rat.
Gross.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for coming to Tabletop, everyone. We'll see you
We
later.
really enjoyed the time you gave us, and I'm so sorry it ended on that.
No, so that's the first encounter. Let's say that you have three complications. One is the fruit vendor or whatever vendor gets caught up in the chase. We have the pane of glass. Then they get down into the sewer, and we have these dire rats that are
After the
self-eating.
Granny encounter.
Yeah, after Granny grapples away or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is your first encounter. And then you can have like a little bit of, I think, RP time of them walking through like the end of the sewer or something after they get away to get to the beginning of the crypt and being like, well, we're really in it this time, guys.
Yeah.
Well, this actually breaks into the sort of like the three structures of RPG. We did like the chase, which would cover combat.
Yeah.
This would be the sort of exploration and social. So you're kind of getting all three of your big pillars right here.
Yeah.
As they explore the sewers, because maybe they don't know where the crypt exit is.
Yeah.
Which gives you a chance to roll some checks to find your way around, discover some new things, and give them the RP time to talk about and like interact.
I'd like to step into the dungeon zone now because we are now in a dungeon. This feels like a 2-stage dungeon. Like there's a sewer component, there's a crypt component. There could be a third component. I feel like a 3, like you have these sort of like biomes, right? That you can put into these things, into dungeons. And then I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on dungeons, but I don't know if anybody else wants to talk first.
No, I think that this is interesting too because it really goes into what you are trying to get your characters to be interested in for the rest of the game, because this is your kind of start. If you want to encourage exploration, like you were saying, Daniel, then maybe have them find something interesting in the sewer. Like maybe they find like a magic lamp that doesn't need oil to light or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh shit, like I always want to explore.
Yeah, this is always a good time to put plot hooks into your next adventure.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, like you find a skeleton and it has like a treasure map to a different dungeon or like ruin or something like that.
And you see the telltale bracelet or anklet or whatever that Granny Snake Eyes puts on all of her orphans on the skeleton.
Okay, this is a real. Sorry, this is stepping out into just our world, but this really reminds me of Hespero, who is my quest giver for my campaign that turned out to be the main villain. This is the same vibe I'm getting for this.
Granny Snake Eyes definitely has like weird vibes. I don't know who she is as a character yet.
You can
but
always
I feel like she's trouble.
You can always keep it a little vague at this point. You could like add things like this anklet or whatever into your game, and then later be like, you find out that these are anklets of protection. She's an awesome person. You know what I mean? You don't have to make any decisions yet. I think that just adding flavor like that is very fun.
Also, I love the idea that she puts runes of explosive runes on her orphans and also charms of protection.
She didn't want both. Like, why not both?
Yeah, why not? Why not a firm but fair?
Like, listen, if you're
mentor?
working for me, I'm going to make sure that you survive and you level up. If you don't work for me anymore, I have a severance package.
I would like if we do go with Granny Snake Eyes as this sort of like, I'd like it either she's a hag but she's nice, or she's just a bad person but is not a hag at all. It's just a normal bad woman.
It's definitely ambiguous.
I feel like that would be, really putting it on its.
You like you walk into a thing like 5 episodes from now, and you see her hunched over this sort of like swaddled form, like consuming it, and then they turn on the lights, and it's just like
a big
a
old
giant burrito.
Absolutely.
She's gonna eat that burrito.
Oh. I call this my food baby.
So about that dungeon.
Yes.
I kind of think that I love the idea of 3 biomes, and I am a fan of a 5-room session. I think it has a lot of use in its planning. And, going from the sewers where we're doing this exploration, this RP bits, I really would say, because this is a session 1 that we're trying to plan, we don't want them to get too lost. So essentially the penalty for navigating away is they just lose time. And that means that their opponents get there first. So that should be a deciding factor when they get in to the dungeon proper, into this next part where it's going from sewers to crypts. Will there be the opponents, or are they still hot on their tails in some fashion? And that should be decided.
I think that this is the time to like let them go and breathe out a little bit. So you have them hot on the heels. They take a corner. They all jump down the manhole cover. They see Granny Granny Snake Eyes. Take a grapple gun, shoot it, close the manhole cover, and you hear like feet go over the manhole.
They are safe in the sewer portion. And now it's just like can they get to the stash before Granny stab them?
So this is their time to.
God damn it, Granny Snake Eyes!
I know. I'm doing the same thing.
You put it in my head. You've done this to me.
So, but
very similar characters.
They definitely have the breather in the sewer. I love that, but I'm talking about when they get into the crypt next, and that should be decided based on whether they got lost. No, based on whether they got lost in the sewer. Because
that's
if they're doing
a nature check,
or like a survival check.
Just how well did you navigate the turns and twists of the crypts,
and also
the sewer? I mean,
but how would you determine that? Like, obviously not.
You just take a left or a right.
Well, you can have them take
there or
like
not.
you can have them take like 3 actions and say, okay, I want to explore. That's 1. I want to like roll a survival to try to get to wherever we're going.
Yep.
And then like I want to go there. That's 3 things.
I guess
like that. And if they do other things other than that, they're wasting time or something.
I guess
like
it just
or they fail a roll.
It just depends on like what. I guess it's like. So, from my perspective, how I would design this, I guess, is what I guess I'm trying to get at, is we have this thing is a one whole dungeon. This is a sewers plus crypt is the space that we're playing in, right? This is our play space. This is our little sandbox. We have multiple entrances to this crypt. We have sort of loops within the sewers. And then maybe if you take a longer loop, you get a reward. Maybe you find like something cool. If you take a shorter one, you're there faster. And you have multiple entrances into the crypt through which one of the, our competing adventuring party or, the enemy is coming in through that way. And then you have multiple exits and entrances into the crypt, into the sewers. And this sort of encourages an amount of exploration for the players so that they feel like they are active in exploring this space. That it's not just us saying like, okay, like roll some dice and see if you get into the crypts. I feel like it's more interesting if the players are engaging with the environment and like engaging with like, okay, you see the water flow going, you know, like maybe they do sense something, like they feel like the slope going downwards, and they see the river, like the sewer, like the water in the sewer, like going in a certain direction. That sort of makes them think like, oh, maybe it's that way, or maybe it's that way. Like you don't have to roll a survival tech to just look at, you know, the signs of, maybe you see like some gold coins scattered that are used to like put over the eyes of dead people. Like maybe that's a history check to know that.
Yeah.
But, you know, to like identify those coins. But like really, if you just see that, you're like, that's probably where the gold is. And you follow those coins. You know, you can leave things like that.
I think that you can also use a survival check as like so if they roll either high or low, you can give them options of what they want to do. So like if they roll high, maybe you give them good options with more information. So like, hey, as you kind of are exploring, roll a survival check. It's a 15, great. You see some gold scattered, and you remember that you've seen a couple of like funeral processions before, and that these like gold coins are placed on the eyes of like the dead. So maybe that is the right direction. In another area, you saw like a lot of heavy webbing, and you think that maybe that there's a monster over there. like you haven't seen spider webs this thick before.
But I guess my question is, why hide that behind a roll?
I think, but then if you do a low roll, you could say like you see a hallway that has really thick webbing, but you don't see any evidence of a monster, and you see like a chest at the end of it. Or
why? I don't know. I guess it's like, why would you lead them to that conclusion? Like saying like, you don't think that that's, you know, like based on the roll. I feel like you could just see that fork, seeing coins, and then seeing webbing.
Yeah.
And then they would just,
I guess it depends on how much like pre-dungeon building you actually want to do.
That's true.
And
it's true.
Because what you're talking about really requires a map already being drawn out.
Yeah, but like, I guess it's like the map doesn't have to be big. It just has to be like, well, it doesn't have to be anything.
No.
But it's, I'm just trying to offer an alternative, I guess, to like the 5-room dungeon, which is like not really a 5-room dungeon. It's more of a story beat.
Correct.
A set of story beats that you want to hit. And it's like, do you want to feel, it just depends on what kind of game you want to run, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, do you want the first time players to feel like, you know, I'm being guided through a story, or I am engaging with a fiction, like I'm engaging with a real world?
So that's interesting, because when you say, why hide it behind a roll, I think that's actually them engaging with the world when they roll.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just tell them this is here and this is here, that's not them engaging. That's me guiding them through a story.
Well, it's you're pointing things out, and then they can. Well, it's like, I don't know. It's sort of like, okay, so which, I don't know. Like if you give them a fork.
Well, there's a lot of, I guess this depends. Like this is why we got. Oh, Jesus Christ! Edit that out. This is where we get into like DM styles, and maybe not.
True.
Because here's what I would do is I would decide, okay, I would have them just roll a general check to see how many like beats it was going to take them to find their way through this sewer.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't really work with maps or pre-planning, and then I would roll another check for the debt collectors, debtors. Would that be the word? Yeah,
It's debt collectors. I don't
Debt
think
collectors.
The debtors are is Granny.
the
Debtor's Granny,
the
yeah.
antagonist.
Yeah.
And I would roll another check to see like how long is it going to take them to get, like how many beats.
That's a
would
smart
that.
way to do it, I think.
And now we're rolling to see. Okay, you roll these checks. Let the party now roll. It's just going to be a good encounter that moves you a little bit faster, or a difficult something that you have to overcome. And this is where it'd be more like loose improvisation. You roll low. All right, you have to cross like this filthy like water channel, and that's not good for you. Oh, you rolled high? There's a stone bridge that maybe requires you to go over once at a time.
Yeah. There's also, I think, this is where you can...
con saves against the nasty water.
Yeah, some goes in your mouth. You're grossed out. I think that there's also a bunch of resources online for a first-time GM.
Yes,
like
for
there's
sure.
I found one recently that I absolutely love. It's just if you type in like 100 non-combat encounters for 5e or whatever system
that's
using.
D&D speak, and they're D100 lists.
And it just gives you a bunch of things that could happen. I think that if you, like you said, Daniel, you roll as a GM and say, okay, it's going to take them 4 beats to get through this sewer. It takes the other guys, it takes them 3. Okay, so they're going to get there first. And then you lead them through like how do you guys want to move through this? And then you start just dropping in these little encounters that you've already pulled that are pre-made, and they are much more just like social encounters and maybe skill encounters mixed in, but most of it is just atmospheric weird stuff that maybe can, like you were saying, Shade and Daniel, start hooking them into further episodes of the campaign.
Speaking of tools online that you can use, the style that I'm talking about is also very easy to find stuff online for this.
Procedural.
Like you can go to just some resources, I guess. Dyson Logos. He has made games for has made maps for WotC, I think, and just puts out free maps like all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Donjon, which is like one of the best generators, like generative things that you can find. Can just like list out a list of like monsters or encounters or whatever, just like randomly generate just like, here's a couple of monsters from 5e that you can just drop in there. Like maybe not their stat blocks, but just, or even like you can even generate like a full dungeon. Like if you're like, okay, like I don't want to build a big one, like it's just a crypt.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, let's just do like 7 rooms, you know, one main big crypt room or whatever. And then like the 6 other ones just like, when you generate them, it just says like, yeah, this one has 6 coins. This one has a dead person. This one has like a goblin or whatever, you know, or like 2 ghosts or something. You know, it's not as much prep as you might think, I guess, to do it that way. So I don't want people to think that like you couldn't do that, even if you don't like to, like, you don't even have to draw a map. Like, it's just like, you just
left, right, or straight.
Yeah, you can pull these websites on your browser and have them while you're to do improv stuff too.
Absolutely. I think when, you know, another aspect of this though, because you said something that I love, but you said 7 rooms, and thinking about just how long it can take a small group, this is a group of 4, to go through a single room, especially if they're inexperienced. When I hear, you know, you do want to just kind of be mindful if you're going to go that route. Smaller is better at the start.
Like just a couple of things is fine. I had a dungeon that I made that was like a mine that was taken over by myconids.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of the rooms was just like some bunk beds and a couple of dwarves that have been infected, but they're like not dead yet. And so like the characters can like interact with them, and it's like, well, I want to like look at the spores that are on the walls that are growing and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, those are the same things. Like, and if you get close to them, like you've seen these people like walking around like zombies. So like just like that's literally like 2 things. It's like there's bunk beds, there's dwarves, and then like, yeah, of course, like every other room, there's yellow spores on the wall. Just small like highlightable details like that, and then the players can, you know, and it's their first time, sure, but you know, they could also just ask like, what else is in the room, or like I look for something like would something like this be in this room or whatever that maybe you didn't map out completely, and then you can improvise.
Yeah.
One thing, so just so that we can keep moving too, I think the way that we've ended or landed upon for the sewer is that once they pop into the sewer, you give them a little bit of a narration of like, you guys start to catch your breath. Then you roll a d4 twice, one for them, one for the pursuers, to see how long it takes to get to the crypt. And then you have them start going through the sewers in this sort of like generated, you have up to 4 encounters that you have ready. Maybe you only use 1, and you kind of have that. And then they find the ending of the...
I would say depending on what you wanted to do too, because like I think, Daniel, you've said before, like 3 to 4 encounters per session, like is probably
typically
good
is about what you get through.
Yeah. So like setting it up in that sort of way. Like if you wanted to do it the way that I'm sort of espousing, I would make the dungeon very small.
Yeah.
You know, because like based on like how many people you have like playing, and then like how many people if you want to do it like encounter style, then like try to like prepare like worst case sewer encounter, prepare best case sewer encounter, and then like push them through that, get into the crypt, you explore or whatever.
Well, so we're not super at the crypt yet. So we get through the sewer, through the D4 things. They find the entrance to the crypt. You have a little bit more narration depending on whether the pursuers get there first or your party. Like maybe the the crypt is already cracked open. The door is open. You see like a bunch of footprints, and you see the telltale like studs of the metal boots of the people that were chasing you. And you're like, oh shit, okay, they're already in there. And then you start moving them into the thing. So let's say this is our final sort of thing for the session is this crypt. How would we go about getting to like a final encounter, or how would we want to build the crypt part of it? Do we want it just to be like you open it up and bam, you're in a big antechamber and there's like 4 bandits and they are surrounding, Granny Snake Eyes, and they have all the bags if they get there first? Or like, what do you want to do with the crypt?
I feel like it would be super fun if like you just, the actual monster at the end of the thing is like some terrible undead creature that pops out, kills one of the bandits or whatever.
And everyone's like, get out of here.
Yeah, and they're like, fuck this.
I mean, hero's journey, start where you end, right? End with the chase. Yeah. Maybe you have like a combat encounter that as the third turn starts,
yes, something like that.
Giant skeleton just slams out of like a
Turns
cage or
out
something.
Grandpa Snake Eyes.
Yeah,
was not
I still
really-
love the idea that Grandpa is the undead monster defending his own crypt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that could even be a really good way to
make sure they don't die.
Well, I mean, it could be something that they could kill.
Yeah.
But because we're playing 5e, so everything should be killable or whatever. So like this monster could be killable, sure. But if it's going to be Grandpa Snake Eyes, like you could also reason with it or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you find something earlier in the crypt that was something that belonged to him and you bring it back to him or something like that. Like it was
and that's
dislodged something.
a reward for the
For
exploration.
yeah.
So,
exactly.
okay, so here we go.
So they show up first.
Yeah.
They show up first. You have this thing to
talk
disarm.
with.
But then if you show up first, you don't have that thing because you spend all that you spend all that time just getting there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the thing for the roles for the pursuers is that if they get in first, they're always going to hit the antechamber first.
Right.
And that means that Grandpa Snake Eyes is already in full swing and they have this weird undead thing and they don't have the context.
Yeah.
But if they get there first, then maybe like, it pops up and is like what? Why do you guys all have these? Those are the anklets. Oh, like my wife sent you, huh? Okay, well go find me my hat because I'm really cold in here. And then they get to do a little dungeon exploration, and then they can start hearing the people come in, and they have to like race them back or
I
something.
love the
interesting.
idea of if the party gets there first, Grandpa Deadeyes is just sort of like chill and cool, and he's a corpse obviously, but he's like, yeah, I guard the stash. But if like the guards get there first,
They're just like,
then they're sort of
"Roar!"
like he kind of hulks out, and you have like this undead golem
Yeah.
defending the party instead. And then as an enraged grandpa, he's no longer talk toable. So there's like
As an enraged grandpa.
we've all had them.
Oh no, he's been watching Fox again.
And I think Tucker told me you'd be here. No, but I think it could be like a lot of fun where if you like get there first, it's like a fun social encounter, going back to the action comedy thing. And then like the main part of the crypt is getting to whatever he asked you to bring back in like a skillful way. So you're like trying to get around traps and you're like, you hear the people coming. So everyone has to hide and roll stealth checks and then get to a thing. And then they get back to him and he's like, here's a stash, get over this way or whatever. But if you get there last, then it's just a big combat encounter, and then that way your players don't feel railroaded because you can be like, well, this is how that would have went, kind of thing.
Gotta throw those branches over the tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, make sure. I feel like we're doing a lot of assuming as well. But they could engage with this however they want, right?
Sure.
Right.
I mean that's session building though. It's a lot of assumption that I hope they'll go about it this way.
Yeah.
You've got to be ready to pivot as a
I mean,
game
like
master.
if Grandpa Snake Eyes sits up and goes, oh, and then you say like, what do you want to do? And then someone's like, I stab him in the face. Then like, okay, we're doing a different encounter now.
Yeah.
Well, I think also this is another like philosophical thing, right? Where a lot of the prep that we've done so far has been with a lot of assumptions and branching trees or whatever.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is just creating a dungeon, creating a hook, and then just letting them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that can also be interesting for first time players because then they really feel that exploration.
Yeah, I think it's really like if your players have come to you and said, what I want to get out of this is just like a freewheeling, open-ended, like I want to play World of Warcraft essentially, except TTRPG. Like I don't want a firm, like I have to go through this story there. It's more free open. I get to do whatever I want. Then I think that your suggestion, like this whole thing is like, maybe instead of making specific encounters they run into, you just build like 3 maps. You have the race map, the sewer map, and the dungeon map. And then you just kind of populate it and let them do whatever they want in it. And that's totally fine as well. I think that if, in my experience, first-time players are very shy when it comes to making like firm decisions. Like I take the left or whatever, and it can be as simple as that. Like I take the left can be a 20-minute talk if they are uncomfortable and don't feel very confident. So
It doesn't just have to be first-time players for that conversation.
Well, it's also like with that type of situation, like if you're doing that, you should be able to communicate to them what the space is.
Yeah.
And if the space is very nebulous, you have to tell them like, hey, this is a pretty nebulous space. Like you're in the city streets, you're being chased or whatever. Like it's like, yeah, can I find an alley to duck behind? Like, yeah, you can. Like you're in the city streets. Sure.
Yeah.
You know, can I like, you know, leap into an abandoned building or whatever? Like, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that like being able to communicate that to first time players like is a little tricky. But when they're down in the dungeon, they've already had that sort of thing, and they're like they're more empowered to be like, I think it's about like empowering them a little bit, you know, where it's like you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna just go in or I'm going to very carefully go in and start like sneaking around or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I want to like be around the corner and peer around the wall or whatever.
Okay, so we have the basic structure of all 3 areas now. The only thing really left is to build the combat encounter at the end. If they end up having a combat encounter with either Grandpa Snake Eyes or this bandit group and the corpse. So how would you guys go about, for a set of fairly new players learning the game, how would you build a combat encounter so it is both fun and, you know, somewhat intuitive so that they don't feel like, what am I doing? Like, how do I do this? Do you guys have any suggestions for like a first combat encounter?
I think aside from just like planning the stat blocks and stuff like that, I think having the enemy do tactical things could be very instructive to the players.
Yeah.
There's just something that came to mind. Like if there's like a broken pillar that one of the enemies hides behind and then shoots behind or something like that.
Yeah.
That can be an indication to the players like, oh, cover is the mechanic.
Yeah. Or like a table that they upend and hide behind rather than shoot at somebody, you know, like do that kind of stuff.
I would also give Grandpa Deadeyes a layer action. Because he's grown big, he's enraged now.
Yeah.
So at the like end of every
Picturing
round,
just a big honking
there's
skeleton.
this rubble and stones fall like they're inside of a crypt.
He like smashes.
So
the
there's
ground
like
part
as
of
she
it,
like as the fight's rolling, the crypt starts falling around.
This is a
and now you
deadly
have
encounter.
now you have a doom encounter because all right, you guys got to either like get the stash for Granny Snake Eyes and get out of here, or you got to bring this zombie down fast. Or everything's gonna be buried alive, and that kind of gives them a good set of like, here's the stakes. You don't have to win, but you have to move. You have to pick.
Yeah,
that's pretty fucking cool, actually.
Yeah,
because I like that, and then that's like another good point to remind them, like, hey, don't forget, you don't have to win this. Like, you can just go.
Yeah. Your goal is to grab something, not kill everyone in the room.
And I think that the way you can kind of balance having this sort of deadly creature in this early encounter is have it being focused on the bandits first, because they got there first and tried to steal the thing. So it's going to, unless distracted or otherwise, it's going to focus in on those people so that you can like sneak around and grab the thing and get out of there if you need to.
And the bandits have morale too.
Yeah.
Like they might book it too.
Yeah. And I think that this, so in the end, you maybe have 4 bandits for level 3, maybe like 6. It depends on what stat block you're using.
That's a lot to run though.
Yeah.
Probably like a bandit captain and then 2 like 3 other guys.
That's probably better.
Something like that.
And then, or you could even have 2 bandit captains and 1 like normal bandit, and the normal bandit is the leader, and then like these honking elites are the...
Wait, no, I like the idea of it being like there's 2 bandit captains, 4 bandits total, but both of the bandit captains are trying to boss everybody around.
And like there's some really good, if you're like somebody who loves to RP, there's some fun stuff you can do when they're like sneaking to get Granny Snake Eyes or Grandpa Snake Eyes hat. Like they're like, no, I said go left. No, I said go right. What are you gonna do, Alfredo? And then Alfredo's like, looking at both of the captains.
I'll tell you what I'll do, Marinara.
So I think that we have pretty much a good thing. And then, of course, the ending of a session, they either die in the crypt or they pop out of the crypt, either with or without the stash. Maybe Granny Snake Eyes is out there being like, so you get the stuff kind of thing. And then you have like a little RP encounter
And
at
they
the
wake
end.
up.
Yeah, because I think the fun part about this adventure that we've just made, I think, is that the fail condition happens to Granny Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
If they don't grab her stash, she doesn't pay off her debtors, she's in trouble. They lose an ally, but they themselves are free to keep adventuring. It's not this failure doesn't end their adventure right away.
Well, but that could also open up an opportunity for, if we didn't succeed, we'll figure out a way to pay your debts, Granny.
Yeah,
You know.
need more
Depending on
hooks.
how much they attach themselves to the NPC. Yeah. All right. So from first to last, we have them starting out in media res in this chase scene. Granny Snake Eyes has this moment of telling them what the mission is, right into a chase where they get to the sewer. They go down the sewer. You roll the 2d4s to determine how many encounters each party, the pursuers and the pursued, get before they get to the crypts. If then you play out a couple of those in the sewers with the party. Then they arrive at the crypt. If they arrive first, they get to sort of get there without a whole lot of hassle, getting to the Grandpa Snake Eyes tomb. Have a conversation, have to go get that hat because his head's cold. And you have a little bit of RP, and you can build a couple of encounters of trying to dodge the pursuers as they are entering into the crypt as well. Then you get back, you give it to him, maybe you get the thing and he's like, I'll distract him, and then he gives you an easy way out kind of thing. Or you get there second, you get in there, and there's a big combat encounter already happening. And you have what Daniel mentioned of this boss monster that has lair actions that's trying to collapse the tomb on top of everyone. He's attacking the bandits, but you are trying to get to the tomb and get the stuff, the stash, and get out. Once you get out, either with or without the stuff, you have a little meeting with Granny Snake Eyes saying, we have your stuff, and she thanks you and starts bringing you into the next adventure, whatever plot hook you want. Or you don't have the stuff and you have a plot hook of, we need to figure out how to pay off Granny Snake Eyes' debt. Or, let's get out of town, Granny Snake Eyes. And you go out into the wilderness where the hydras are, and you have to get to the next town. And there's your next session as well.
Yeah.
We're really good at this. Good job,
we did it.
everybody.
Yeah.
Do we want to explain why we keep saying Granny Stabums? Have we discussed that before?
Probably not. My first character was named Bill Stabums and was part of a
Stabums family.
the Stabums family, who is a notorious thief family. And late into the first arc of our campaign, we met Granny Stabums,
Awful
who
woman.
loved Bill but hated pretty much everybody else.
Her introduction,
Hateful woman.
awful. I mean, just a mean NPC. Her introduction was us in a cart and her digging a goddamn hole outside of the city entrance that she covered over, and our cart and horse fell into, horse dying in the process. So
She was great. I loved her.
Immediately hate you off the bat.
Wow.
No, I mean, it was a great NPC. I
love her so
wanted
much.
to take her down personally.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope that helps you, first-time GM out there, to build a first session. If you have any questions, you can always go to our website, tabletoppod.com, and send in a request form. It's just right on the front page where it'll go straight to our email, and we can read your question, answer it on a pod in the future. If you haven't already, join us on Twitter at Tabletopped. And just because it's great, you can always find us in the reviews by going down there, giving us a 5-star and a little written review. It really helps out the pod. And Tabletop is a proud member of the Helios Network. A Helios Network is a network of podcasts made by normal people for normal people. And you should definitely check out some of their pods, like Master and Debaters, which is people debating very firmly about very stupid topics. It's a really great one, and we hope you'll check it out and take a listen. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
At last, I have reached the tallest peak in all the world, where the wisest person lives. Finally, I'll get the answers I seek.
Welcome. I am the wisest person in the world. Ask me your question.
What is my purpose in life? What should I be doing to achieve pure happiness?
You must stream Game Master Monday.
Come again.
Game Master Monday, the bi-weekly podcast that plays a new one-shot in a new system in a new setting with a new cast every episode. Listening to their funny jokes and wild stories is the only path to happiness, my child.
Sick. I'm going to go home and binge the whole thing right now.
What a nice kid. Oh dear, he fell off the mountain. Now they'll never know how good Game Master Monday is.
Slay the Stars, D&D actual play, cosmic fantasy, dark fairy tale, shenanigans! Listen in Tuesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time on any major streaming platform. SlayTheStars.com. Persomnia ad Astra.